We've been telling you about the human toll of the political crisis in Venezuela, how ordinary people are truly struggling just to survive as food and other supplies become more and more scarce. In a sign of just how desperate things have become, some women who'd normally be at work in a doctor's office or a law firm are now resorting to something pretty unthinkable just to keep their families alive. Isa Suarez has that story.
On the street corners in the main squares of Colombia's border city of Cúcuta, Venezuelan women hide their pain behind their feigned smiles. It's here I meet Marisa, who trembles as she tells me her story. As a nurse back home, she worked 15 days for a bag of flour. Frustrated, desperate, and unable to find work in a city with one of the highest unemployment rates in Colombia, she now sells her body to feed her children back home, earning a mere $6 per man.
Es frustrante porque tienes que darte cuenta de que te trabajaste 5 años de mi vida estudiando, pero son 5 años que yo siento en este momento que fueron perdidos porque no los puedo ejercer.
With each tear comes a drop of anger.
El gobierno tiene mucha parte en esto. No el actual, pero más culpa tiene el anterior.
But the shame is overpowering, and keeping the secret is tearing her apart.
¿Crees que ella iba a entender tu razón para hacerlo?
Mi mamá es una super mamá, mi mamá lo es todo, y yo sé que el día de que si ella se llega a enterar por cualquier cosa, yo sé que sí le va a doler porque sí, pero no me va a juzgar.
On a different square just down the road,
Soy una mujer que nunca me imaginé esto, llegar a este extremo.
I meet an experienced attorney, also selling sex to feed her 2 children and parents back in Venezuela.
Me alcanza para darle solo el desayuno, a veces solo el almuerzo, a veces se acuestan sin comer. Y bueno, van a la escuela, hago hasta lo imposible.
But the impossible, she tells me, has become a burden.
Al fin de día, ¿qué haces vos? ¿Lloras? ¿Rezas? ¿Cómo?
Sí, me arrodillo en las noches a pedirle a Dios, hasta fui a la iglesia a pedirle perdón a Dios, porque pienso en las caritas de mis niños, en mis padres. No es fácil, amiga. No es fácil.
Venga para acá, vamos, caminemos.
Well, Isa joins me now live with more on this story, which is really, really heartbreaking. Isa, you're in Cúcuta, just across the Venezuelan border. It doesn't seem, first of all, I was surprised that the second woman wasn't hiding her face. I mean, I think that you could see that probably that too is out of desperation as well, to tell the world what's really going on.
Yeah, absolutely. She said of course, many members of her family don't know. She has one family member in Peru who knows about it, but she said she's got to the point that, you know, I've done everything, I've tried everything, I've knocked on so many doors here in Colombia. She said I tried to be a nanny, I tried to clean, I tried to work in restaurants, but she told me off camera that, you know, there's an element of discrimination too, because of course there's so many Venezuelans coming into Colombia, and in some regions, like in the question of north of Santander, where we are, there's unemployment is extremely high, and so there's Colombians and there's Venezuelans fighting for jobs, and so she's been unable to get what she called a decent job, a job where she could hold her head up high. So she said the pressure is so much to try and feed not just my 2 children, but also my parents, who are looking after my children, that I had no other option but to do this. She said, I've never thought in a million years this never crossed my mind. And this is what I'm hearing time and time again. So there is an element of people letting down their guard, wanting to tell us their story. I've had so many people thanking me for share their stories. I actually just interviewed Hala one boy who was 19, a teenager, 19-year-old, who crossed over from Venezuela about 4 or 5 months ago. And he left because he's HIV positive. He couldn't get any antiretroviral drugs. He hasn't been able to get his hands on them for a while now. He said for several years. He had 1 month where he had drugs. He had 1 month where he didn't have any of that medication. He said out of 30 of his friends, or of the group of people that had those retroviral drugs, 31 is alive. The other 29 have died. So he said it's a question of life and death. So people have decided that no, it's not the time now to hide behind inside their rooms, under their duvets. This is a time to actually tell the world exactly what's happening. And some people blame Maduro, but others actually blame themselves for electing Chavez, for electing Maduro, Hala.
And there are new protests that the opposition is calling for. Tell us more about that.
Yes, so we're expecting protests, large protests, something similar to what we saw in the last several weeks. Juan Guaido has been calling on youth to go to the streets. It's Youth Day tomorrow, so expecting large numbers of people from all walks of life. I interviewed a middle-class family who actually made their way to Colombia, who came here to get milk and nappies for their children. He said, we're taking to the streets. Of course we're going to the streets. Everyone will be taking to the streets. And I said, if there's an element of nervousness, and they told me, of course, because you don't know we don't know who's standing next to you. You don't know if they are militia belonging to the government. You really don't know. So you go out there because it's been a positive energy trying to call for change. But these are nervous times and anxious times. So expect large protests. We've heard from Juan Guaido as well this morning, who actually said that more than 100,000 people have gone to a website that they've created to be almost donators, try and carry that humanitarian aid. How are they going to carry it? How are they going to get across the border and then carry it without being stopped by Maduro's men? Well, I think that's a plan that's still in motion, but clearly he's got the masses behind him. Whether he can achieve anything, well, of course, that is still to be seen, Hala.
All right, Isa Suarez, thanks very much.